The moment Victoria Chen realized she had become her own mother was not in a boardroom or a courtroom, but at her business partner's wedding, watching a stranger in a worn dress shirt do what she had forgotten how to do. See her daughter as a human being instead of a problem to be managed. In 30 seconds, this man would crouch down to Emma's eye level and ask a question no one had asked in 4 years. What would you like to do? In 30 minutes, Victoria would destroy the first real smile her daughter had worn since the accident. And in 30 days, she would be standing in a cramped apartment kitchen, learning that everything she believed about love, success, and motherhood had been catastrophically, heartbreakingly wrong. But first, the wedding. The Blackstone estate glittered like something from a fairy tale gone wrong. String lights dripped from century-old oak trees. Crystal champagne towers caught the last golden rays of sunset. 300 guests in designer gowns and tailored suits mingled across manicured lawns that cost more to maintain than most families earned in a year. It was the kind of wedding that would trend on social media for weeks, the kind where every detail had been curated, controlled, perfected, including where to put the CEO's disabled daughter so she wouldn't disrupt the aesthetic. Emma Chen sat in her wheelchair behind a marble column, positioned where she could technically see the dance floor, but where the dance floor couldn't quite see her. Her ivory silk dress had been chosen by a personal shopper. Her hair had been styled by a professional. Her makeup, subtle, age-appropriate, had been applied by someone whose job it was to make problems disappear. And Emma had learned, over 4 years of doctors and therapists and specialists, that she was a problem. She had been sitting alone for 2 hours and 43 minutes. She knew the exact time because counting was something you learned to do when no one was counting on you. Across the reception, Victoria Chen moved through the crowd like a queen surveying her kingdom. At 45, she had earned every inch of her reputation. CEO of Meridian Technologies, Fortune 500 leader. The woman who had shattered more glass ceilings than most people knew existed. No one looking at her would guess that she hadn't spoken directly to her daughter in 6 days. Not out of cruelty, Victoria would never consider herself cruel, but her schedule had been demanding. Board meetings, investor calls, a hostile takeover attempt that required her full attention. Emma had her team. Emma had her routines. Emma had everything she needed, everything except her mother. Victoria caught her reflection in a champagne flute and felt something cold move through her chest. For just a moment, she didn't see herself. She saw Eleanor. Eleanor Chen had been a surgeon, brilliant, celebrated, perpetually absent. Victoria's childhood had been a series of nannies and housekeepers and birthday parties her mother attended via phone call. School plays watched through the lens of hired videographers. I will never be like her, Victoria had sworn at 16, standing at her grandmother's funeral while Eleanor took a work call in the parking lot. And yet here she was, different profession, same distance, different excuses, same empty chair at the breakfast table. Victoria pushed the thought away, smiled at the senator, reached for another glass of champagne. Her daughter was fine. The report said so. At a table near the service entrance, Daniel Morrison was trying to convince his 8-year-old daughter that bread rolls were just as good as the fancy appetizers. But Daddy, those little things have sparkles on them. Sparkles don't mean tasty, Soph. Remember Aunt May's glitter cake? Sophie giggled, and Daniel felt the familiar warmth that made every sacrifice worth it. His wife Rachel had died when Sophie was 3. Ovarian cancer, diagnosed too late, gone too fast. The grief had nearly destroyed him, but Sophie needed a father more than Daniel needed to fall apart. He'd learned to braid hair from YouTube videos, mastered the art of school lunches that were nutritious and cool enough to avoid playground mockery, built a life that was small by some measurements, a cramped apartment, a second-hand car, a college fund that grew in coins rather than stocks, but infinite in the ways that mattered. Daddy, Sophie tugged his sleeve, her voice dropping to a whisper. That girl over there, the one in the wheelchair, why is she all by herself? Daniel followed her gaze across the reception. He saw a child who had perfected the art of disappearing, a little girl surrounded by luxury, utterly alone. Something cracked open in his chest. Hi there. Emma startled at the voice. People didn't usually talk to her directly. They talked to her nurses, her therapists, her mother's assistant. The man crouching in front of her had kind eyes and calloused hands. Behind him stood a girl about her age with messy braids and a gap-toothed smile. I'm Daniel. This is my daughter Sophie. She's been learning to fold paper cranes. Would you like to see? Emma's heart did something strange, a flutter she hadn't felt in so long she'd forgotten the name for it. You're asking me? Of course, it's completely your choice. Your choice? When was the last time anything had been her choice? Yes, she whispered. Yes, please. The next 23 minutes were nothing special by any objective measure. Daniel wheeled Emma to their table, after asking her permission, after letting her decide which route to take. Sophie spread napkins across the tablecloth like a surgeon preparing for an operation. The first fold is the hardest, Sophie announced, but once you get it, the rest is easy. Their heads bent together over the paper, Sophie's small hands guiding Emma's trembling ones. When Daniel made a terrible crane, lopsided, one wing bigger than the other, both girls dissolved into giggles. Emma laughed. The sound came out rusty, like a door that hadn't been opened in years. But it came, and several nearby guests turned to look, because joy has a frequency that cuts through even the most carefully curated social noise. One of those guests was Margaret Ashworth, 73 years old, dripping with pearls, Victoria Chen's mother's oldest friend. Excuse me. Her voice carried the particular blend of courtesy and condescension that old money had perfected. That's Victoria Chen's daughter. She has specific care requirements. You really shouldn't be. Shouldn't be what? Daniel stood slowly. Talking to her, teaching her origami? There are protocols. She's been sitting alone for almost 3 hours at a party celebrating family. Whatever protocols put her there aren't protecting her. They're erasing her. And then Victoria appeared. She moved through the crowd with swift efficiency, her heels clicking against stone. Her eyes took in everything. Her daughter at a stranger's table, paper cranes scattered like evidence, a working-class man who had somehow given Emma something that all of Victoria's money had failed to provide. Emma, we're leaving. Mom, look. Emma held up her paper crane, her face luminous with desperate hope. Sophie taught me. That's lovely, sweetheart. We'll discuss it later. The light in Emma's eyes flickered. Daniel stepped forward. With respect, your daughter was alone for hours. We just wanted to. My daughter doesn't need charity from strangers. Victoria's gaze swept over him. The worn shirt, the calloused hands, and made a calculation that would haunt her for months. And she certainly doesn't need a handyman presuming to tell me what's best for her. The silence that followed was absolute. Emma's face crumpled. Sophie grabbed her father's hand. Daniel looked at Victoria for a long moment. Then he crouched down, his eyes meeting Emma's. It was really nice meeting you. You're going to be an excellent crane folder. Keep practicing, okay? He took Sophie's hand and walked away. But Emma wasn't looking at her mother. She was looking at the paper crane in her lap, the first thing she had made in 4 years. Your choice. She held those words like a secret, like a seed that might someday grow into something. The week following the wedding, Emma stopped speaking. Not dramatically. She still answered direct questions, still said please and thank you, still followed instructions with mechanical precision. But she stopped asking, stopped wondering, stopped expressing any preference about anything at all. When her nurse asked what she wanted for breakfast, whatever's easiest. When her tutor offered choices, you decide. The daily reports noted the change in clinical language. Subject displays reduced verbal engagement, appetite diminished, sleep quality compromised. What the reports couldn't capture was what Emma did every night, alone in her room. She smoothed out the paper crane, pressing each crease flat until it was just a square of paper again. Then she reshaped it. Fold here, crease there, turn it over. The paper grew soft with repetition, but each morning the crane sat on her nightstand, the only thing in her professionally decorated room that she had made herself. Victoria threw herself into work. There was a merger to finalize, a board meeting to dominate, a quarterly report that would prove to shareholders and to herself that she was in control. She told herself the wedding incident was minor. Emma's current phase was a normal adjustment. The reports would improve. But late at night, when sleep refused to come, Victoria found herself watching the security footage from Emma's room. Her daughter sitting by the window for hours, staring at the city with blank eyes. Her daughter reshaping that paper crane like it was the only thing keeping her tethered to the world. It was 11:47 p.m. on a Thursday when Victoria came home early. A migraine, she'd told her assistant. But the real pain was somewhere deeper. The penthouse was too quiet, the kind of silence that felt like abandonment. Emma's door was slightly ajar. Victoria paused outside, some instinct telling her to listen. Doesn't matter anyway, Emma was saying. Mom has meetings and calls and important things. I'm just maintenance, like the building. Someone checks on me, makes sure everything's working, files a report. Your mother loves you very much, the nurse responded. Does she? Emma's voice cracked. Because that man at the wedding, Daniel, he saw me. Not my wheelchair, not my therapy schedule. He let me decide things. He treated me like I was real. There was a pause. Sometimes I think the real Emma died in the accident. Nobody noticed because they were too busy keeping my body alive. I'm not a daughter anymore. I'm a project. Victoria's hand flew to her mouth. She slid down the hallway wall, her $12,000 dress pooling on cold marble. Her daughter thought she was dead. And suddenly, Victoria saw herself through Emma's eyes. A woman who signed checks instead of giving hugs, who hired experts instead of learning alongside her daughter, who had built a fortress of professional care and then wondered why Emma felt imprisoned. I became exactly what I swore I would never be. The next morning, Victoria canceled everything. The board meeting, her assistant stammered, can wait. The merger can wait. But everything can wait. My daughter cannot. Finding Daniel Morrison took less than an hour. The drive to his neighborhood took longer, not in miles, but in the distance between worlds. Glass towers gave way to brick buildings. Doormen gave way to children playing on sidewalks. Curated landscaping gave way to laundry on fire escapes. She parked outside his building and sat in her car for 22 minutes. Then she climbed 3 flights of stairs and knocked on apartment 2B. Daniel opened the door with the expression of someone expecting anyone except her. Mrs. Chen. Victoria, just Victoria. He studied her. The designer suit wrong for this hallway, the dark circles her makeup couldn't hide, then stepped aside. Would you like to come in? His apartment was small, but it pulsed with evidence of life. Sophie's drawings covered the refrigerator, bright colors, hearts, stick figures holding hands. A half-finished puzzle on the coffee table, books with cracked spines, a jar labeled Sophie's Dreams filled with coins. This is what home looks like, Victoria realized. I came to apologize, she began. And? His directness startled her. In her world, people accepted apologies and moved on. And? Her composure cracked. I came because my daughter is disappearing. She thinks the real Emma died in the accident. She thinks I don't see her. She thinks she's just a project I manage through reports because actually being with her is too hard. Tears streamed down her face. I need someone to teach me how to be her mother again. I've never felt so incompetent at something that matters so much. Sophie appeared in the doorway, still in pajamas. Is Emma okay? The genuine concern in a child's voice broke something further. I'm trying to make her okay, Victoria whispered. That's why I'm here. Daniel pulled out a chair at his small kitchen table. Sit down, have some coffee, and tell me about your daughter. Not her medical history. Tell me what makes her laugh. What makes her curious? What makes her Emma? Victoria sat and realized she didn't know the answers to any of those questions. The first Saturday dinner was awkward in ways Victoria had never experienced. She had negotiated billion-dollar deals without flinching, but sitting at a fold-out table eating spaghetti from a box, watching her daughter interact with Sophie with an ease she'd never witnessed, Victoria felt utterly out of her depth. Emma kept looking at her with hope and suspicion tangled together. Are you really staying? When Sophie asked Emma what her favorite color was, Emma froze. I'm not sure. Nobody's asked me that in a long time. That night back at the penthouse, Victoria sat on Emma's bed. Can I ask you something? Emma nodded, wary. What is your favorite color? The question startled Emma more than anything Victoria had said in years. You actually want to know? I want to know everything. I've missed so much. But I'd like to start learning. Emma was quiet. Then, it used to be pink, but now I think it might be yellow, like morning light through a window. She paused. It feels hopeful. Victoria filed this away like the most precious information she had ever received. Yellow, I like that. And Emma tentatively, like someone testing ice that might not hold, smiled. The Saturday dinners continued. Victoria learned to cook. Badly at first, burned pasta, oversalted sauce. But the failures didn't matter. What mattered was being there, making the failures, sharing the laughter. She learned that Emma loved mysteries more than fantasy, that she'd been secretly writing stories in a notebook, that she wanted to see the ocean, not as a therapeutic outing, but just to feel the sand and watch the waves. Then we'll go, Victoria said. This summer, just us. Emma's eyes widened. Really? Really? 3 weeks in, Victoria noticed something she'd been too self-absorbed to see. Daniel was exhausted. She learned his company had lost a major contract, that Sophie's school had raised tuition, that he was working double shifts while pretending everything was fine. Let me help, Victoria said one evening, after both girls had fallen asleep on the couch. Sophie's arm draped protectively over Emma. Daniel's jaw tightened. I don't need charity. It's not charity. Meridian needs electrical work at 3 facilities. Your company could bid. I'm not promising you'd win, but you'd have a fair shot. He stared at her. If we win, it's because we earned it. Agreed. And Daniel, the dinners are separate from business. Always. You and Sophie are family now. His company won the contract. On merit. When he called to tell her, Victoria felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Joy that had nothing to do with her own success. The breakthrough came on a rainy Sunday afternoon. They were looking through old photographs when Emma found one from the year before the accident. Victoria pushing Emma on a swing, both of them laughing. We look happy, Emma said softly. We were. What happened? Victoria could deflect, change the subject. Instead, she told the truth. The day of the accident, I was supposed to take you to the park. I promised. But I got a work call. I told the nanny to take you instead. Her voice broke. I've spent 4 years hiring the best doctors, the best therapists, because I thought if I could make you healthy enough, successful enough, it would prove my absence didn't ruin your life. But I wasn't there for any of it. I was managing your recovery like a project instead of living it with you." Emma was quiet for a long time. Then she reached out and took her mother's hand. "It wasn't your fault, Mom. The drunk driver? But if I had been there, you might have been hurt too. Or killed." Emma squeezed her hand. "I used to think you didn't love me anymore. That the accident made me too broken to love. But that wasn't it, was it? You loved me so much you were terrified." And the fear came out wrong. Victoria pulled her daughter into her arms and cried in a way she hadn't allowed herself in 4 years. "I'm so sorry." "I know, Mom. I know." The test came 2 months later. Emma was practicing independent transfers in Central Park when she saw a red balloon caught in a tree branch. It reminded her of a birthday party before the accident, her mother tying a balloon to her wrist so she wouldn't lose it. She reached for it. The bench was too high. The ground was uneven. She fell. The impact was minor, scraped palms, bruised pride. But Emma's reaction was immediate. "Mom, I want my mom!" Victoria was 50 yards away, mid-call with her board chair. She dropped her phone, kicked off her heels, ran. She reached Emma and didn't assess the damage, didn't ask clinical questions. She simply gathered her daughter into her arms. "I'm here. I'm here, baby. I'm not going anywhere." "You came." Emma was sobbing. "You really came. I will always come, I promise." And they both knew it was a promise that would be kept. 1 year after the wedding, Victoria stood in the garden of Meridian's company picnic, watching her daughter navigate the crowd. Emma had designed the accessibility features herself. Daniel's company had done the electrical work. His crew now included 3 new employees hired after the Meridian contract stabilized his business. Sophie had helped Emma make 300 paper cranes to hang as decorations. They swayed in the autumn breeze now, catching the light, casting shadows like birds in flight. Daniel appeared at Victoria's side, Sophie holding his other hand. "She's remarkable," he said. "She always was. I just forgot to notice." Sophie tugged her father's sleeve. "Dad, can we get Emma? She promised to teach me the new fold she invented." "Go ahead, sweetheart." Victoria watched Sophie run toward Emma, watched her daughter's face light up at the sight of her best friend. 2 girls from different worlds who had somehow become sisters. On the small stage, Emma took the microphone. "A year ago, I was invisible. I thought that was just how my life was going to be." She looked at Daniel and Sophie, then at Victoria. "Then someone asked me what I wanted, and I realized I'd forgotten I was allowed to want anything." She held up a paper crane, worn soft from years of holding, edges blurred from being reshaped countless times. "This crane has been through a lot, but it's still here," she smiled. "And so am I." Later that evening, Victoria found Emma in the garden, hanging the last crane on a low branch. "Need help?" "Already done." Above them, 300 paper cranes turned slowly in the breeze. "Mom, what's your favorite color?" Victoria thought about it. Really thought. "I used to think it was the color of success, green of money, gold of achievement." She sat beside Emma's wheelchair. "But now I think it might be yellow, like morning light through a window." Emma's smile was worth more than every award Victoria had ever received. "That's my favorite too. It feels hopeful." Above them, 300 cranes danced in the autumn wind, each one a small act of love, a small proof that broken things could be made beautiful again. Some families are born, others are made, and the very best ones are chosen again and again, in the small moments that teach us what love really means.